Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of Dubai, Season 1, Reunion Part 1, and I have to say, I was actually entertained. Now, I will say that I wasn't expecting a two-part reunion because I didn't think that this season gave 2 parts worth, but this first part, I was thoroughly entertained, I was pleasantly surprised, and the girls brought it. The seating arrangements for the reunion were exactly what I thought it was going to be in my head, with Ayan and Stanbury sitting next to Andy, and then Brooks and Lesa in the middle, and then Nina and Sarah at the tail end. But with all that being said, let's just jump right on into it because you guys already know we don't have a minute to spare. So we start off the reunion with all the ladies arriving to New York. And it's so funny because I remember earlier on, Andy used to fly to each city. But now I guess he's like, look, I'm too busy. Y'all gonna have to fly and meet me here, and we'll just set it up to look like your city. But anyhow, we see all of them getting ready in their dressing rooms. It was so funny because Ayan said, I came here in all black because I'm ready to murder these girls. I remember Portia saying something similar to that in an episode of Atlanta, but I digress. Then we see Andy going into Caroline Stanbury's dressing room. He's asking her, who is she least excited to see today? She says Lesa. Then Andy goes into Lisa's dressing room and he asks her the same question, and she says Stanbury. And it was so funny because he was like, yeah, the feeling's mutual. I thought the set was absolutely beautiful. They did a great job. So we see Andy wait for everybody to come out. Stanbury comes out first. In my personal opinion, looks-wise, I thought that Caroline Stanbury looked the plainest out of all of them. I thought that the makeup was too understated. The dress just wasn't giving what it should have gave, in the words of Rolling Ray. It fell flat to me. Then we have Ayan come out. I thought that Ayan killed it. Her gown was beautiful. She looked beautiful. Just an A+. I love the colors on her. Just gorgeous. So anyhow, while they're waiting for the rest of the women to come out, Andy gets a call from the legendary Naomi Campbell. And I was like, what are the odds? So anyhow, he's like, hey Naomi, I'm actually on set to film The Real Housewives of Dubai. So he says, I have Ayan right here next to me. And so she's like, oh my gosh, like, let me talk to her. Baby, we see Naomi Campbell invite Ayan to walk in one of her fashion shows on October 25th in Qatar. So Ayan's like, oh my gosh, like, sure, I can't wait. And I was like, look at God, like, that's amazing. Of all days, you have Naomi Campbell calling. Ayan is sitting right there and invites her to walk in one of her fashion shows. It doesn't get much better than that. Did you guys notice that Caroline Stanbury's face was pressed? Like, she was big mad. I said, girl, green is not your color.
Bling, bling, bling. Bitches is mad.
I said, but won't God do it though? Talk about a blessing right in front of your enemies. So Andy hangs up the phone and he's like, that wasn't staged, by the way. I had no idea she was going to call me right now. So now we see Nina walk out. I thought that Nina looked beautiful. The hair, the gown, she looked great. Then we see Sarah come out. Sarah is so pretty to me. I loved her look as well, just gorgeous. Then we see Lesa come out. Lesa looked beautiful. And then we have Brooks come out, and she has this long gown with this crown on. And I have to be honest, Caroline B's look didn't do it for me either. I thought the crown, I just wasn't loving it. And when Andy pointed out how her gown looked just like Jen Shah's gown, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. No wonder why it looked so familiar. So we all know how it works during a reunion. Before they dive into all the drama, Andy starts making small talk to warm them up. Andy starts talking to Brooks about her gown, and he's asking her, where did she get it from? Brooks says that her gown is from Nigeria. It took several months to make, and it just came in like a few days before. Ayan was definitely on 10 because she interjects and says, yeah, you know, I'm glad you got feathers to match me because she had feathers at the bottom of her gown. I said the shade of it all. So then Ayan says that she's ready for today, and then we have Sarah saying that her intention for the reunion is to clear things up and just get ready for the truth. So now Andy starts it off by asking all of them, what's the difference between actually living in Dubai versus other people's perception of Dubai? Then Andy goes on to say that when the show was announced and then when it premiered, the network got a lot of outrage and criticism because of Dubai's laws. So Ayan speaks up first, and she says that she was shocked about the backlash regarding Dubai because of what's going on in America regarding abortion. Then she adds on that most of her friends in Dubai are gay. So now Brooks interjects and says that being gay isn't illegal in Dubai, but you have to be respectful when it comes to PDA. So Andy's surprised to hear this, and then Brooks goes on to say that gay couples and straight couples are allowed to hold hands in public, just no kissing. So now Sarah jumps in the conversation and she says that there are so many different religions in the UAE and that it's a big melting pot, and the law regarding PDA in public is not about it being a Muslim country, it's just out of respect for everybody of any religion. I appreciate hearing what's legal and what's illegal in Dubai because, you know, when you go to different countries, you want to learn that. So anyhow, Andy goes on to ask them all to clarify about the show not being funded by the government. They all laugh and say no. And then he goes on to ask if the show is airing in Dubai. They all say yes. And now we learn that they faced backlash in Dubai over the show. So Sarah says that people thought the show was a documentary, and she had people coming up to her telling her that she did not represent Emirati housewives. I definitely wasn't surprised to hear that they did receive backlash once the show started airing in Dubai, because there has been a lot of controversy surrounding the show. So now Andy turns his attention to Brooks, and he starts asking her about when she was with Phaedra, and she told Phaedra in that one episode that black people are treated like royalty there. So he's like, can you explain, like, what are the differences between Dubai and the US in terms of treatment? So Caroline Brooks says that they love black people in Dubai and it's amazing. And although every place has its woes, in Dubai, it's more classist than it is racist. Now, let me just say this. As a black person, you know that anywhere you go in this world, anti-blackness is global. So no place, unfortunately, is free from racism, okay? And I've had some of you guys reach out to me via email who live in the UAE, and you guys have told me that as a black person there, you do face some sort of racism. So Caroline Brooks and Lesa and Ayan acting like it's this utopia, it's not 100% accurate. So now Andy goes on to ask Brooks, what's the biggest difference living in Dubai versus living in the US? And Brooks says that it's safety. Lesa jumps in and agrees. She says that as a black mom raising 3 boys, you know, that's important for her. And then she says that they don't really have guns in Dubai like they do in America. And then Lesa brings up how she lost her brother to gun violence. And we remember that story that she told a few episodes ago about that whole situation. So I know that has to be a relief to know that, you know, in Dubai, they're safe. They don't have to think about things like that. So now Andy reads a viewer's question, and the question was, they were surprised to see so much alcohol on the show, and they thought that alcohol was like illegal or banned in Dubai. So now Sarah jumps in and says that everybody can drink in the UAE, it's just that it has to be controlled, and you can't just buy alcohol anywhere. So now we learned that you need an alcohol license and an ID in order to purchase alcohol, and I think the alcohol license costs like $200. And once again, I enjoy listening to this part. It's always good to know, especially when you're visiting or if you're considering living in another country, good to know all the laws and what they expect and what they require. And I was screaming because Andy started asking, how are you able to have an at-home bar at your house? And then Caroline Brooks was like, you have to fill out some form and check off this box that says that you're an alcoholic. And they were like, girl, what are you talking about? So the small talk's all over, and now it's time to really dive into the mess. So Andy starts it off with Caroline Stanbury, and he's asking Stanbury about when does she plan on having another baby. So Stanbury says not anytime soon, not until we move into our new house, and then we have to make another embryo, so within 2 years. I said, Stanbury, just admit that you don't want to have this baby. Just admit it, please. So now Andy wants to know if Stanbury plans on carrying the baby, and she says yes. Then Andy points out how insensitive Sergio seemed, especially since Caroline had troubles when it came to her carrying her kids in the past. Stanbury agrees, and she says that it's because he hasn't grasped how serious preeclampsia is. And she goes on to say that if it is too dangerous, she'll just get a surrogate. So we learned that getting a surrogate is illegal in Dubai. They would have to get a surrogate from another country. And then Stanbury adds that if they were to get a surrogate, it would be a loss of connection for Sergio. And that is understandable because it would sort of feel like out of nowhere, you're just getting a baby, but you weren't there through the process if she were to get a surrogate in a different country. So we see Andy read another viewer question for Caroline Stanbury, and the question reads, it seems like you don't really want to have this baby, but you're just going along with it to appease Sergio. Do you think that he'll leave if there's no baby? So Stanbury says that it's not a deal breaker for Sergio, but she would like to give him a kid if that's what he really wants. Now, personally, I think that it really is a deal breaker for Sergio, and Caroline knows it, but she's just trying to say, no, it's fine if I do or if I don't, like, he'll still be here. Because a few episodes ago, Stanbury admitted in her confessional that she didn't even want to think about the idea of not being able to carry a child for Sergio. So I don't think that Caroline is too sure that he'll stay if she can't give him a child. I think that she is worried, like, oh my gosh, if I can't carry a child for him, he really might leave. So now we have Brooks jumping in and she's like, they just have to meet in the middle and compromise. And I'm thinking, with a situation like this, there really isn't any compromise. It's either you're gonna do it or you're not. And also, if I remember correctly, Sergio had said in one of the episodes that he didn't want a surrogate. So like I said, I don't know where the compromise is in this situation. But a few of you guys will let me know in the comments that you don't believe any of this and you think that the both of them are in on this so that she can have a storyline. But again, I digress. So now we see Andy asking a shady question. He turns to Lesa and he's like, Lesa, if they do have a baby, will you send over some free products so that Caroline can promote them on her Instagram page? Because we all know that Caroline is an influencer. So Lesa says, sure, I'll send some products to Caroline and Sergio. And Andy was like, oh. I said, once again, the shade. Now, Andy wants to know if there's a prenup between Sergio and Stanbury. There is. Caroline says that he was easy about it. He had his money when he played professional soccer. So now Ayan interjects out of nowhere and she's like, no, he didn't. He never played soccer. He was never on the team. I have friends who are on the Real Madrid and he was not on that team. And so Stanbury's like, girl, what are you talking about? I have his contract. He's been playing soccer since he was 15. Now, Ayan, girl, you have to learn when to pick your battles. This wasn't it, sis. I gotta be honest. But when you Google Sergio, his stats as a soccer player do come up. He was on the team. Now, whether he played or not, that's a different story. But he was on the team, okay? Like, it's there. His stats are there. His net worth is on there. I saw that his net worth was between 5 to 6 million. So now you have Brooks interjecting to defend Stanbury. And I noticed that there were several times throughout this reunion where Brooks seemed to be Stanbury's mouthpiece. But anyhow, they're going back and forth with Ayan. And they're like, Ayan, he played soccer. He played for the team. Like, enough. And I was thinking, once again, Ayan, you look silly trying to argue a fact. So now Brooke says, look, Ayan, Sergio was on the team. He was benched. He didn't get to play, but he was on the team. So Ayan says, if he didn't play, then how did he get paid? Stanbury says, because he had a contract. I don't know that much about sports, but I do know that there is a thing called guaranteed contracts, okay? So if a player gets injured, as long as they sign on that dotted line, they're going to get their money. So that's why you'll hear about somebody in the NBA signing a guaranteed contract for like $100 million for 5 years, and they tear their Achilles like Drew did on Atlanta, and they still get that money because they signed a guaranteed contract. And even Sarah was annoyed. She was like, Ayan, why are you doing this? Like, are you okay? So now we jump to Andy addressing Sergio's racist tweets from 2016. Did anybody notice how quiet Stanbury got? Her face looked so pained. I was like, no, sis, speak up. You have a lot of mouth any other time, but now speak up for this. So Andy starts it off. He's like, have you addressed this with Sergio? And Stanbury doesn't say anything. You have Brooks jump in for her, and I was like, Brooks, why are you Stanbury's spokesperson? Let Stanbury speak. I was really annoyed about that. Like, Brooks became her PR person, crisis management. I was like, girl, what's going on? So now Brooks says it was addressed. I addressed it. People were adding me on Twitter, and I spoke about it. I'm thinking, okay, but that's not the point. We want to know, what does Stanbury think about her husband saying racist stuff, including the N-word, on Twitter 6 years ago? Let's have her answer. And if I were Andy, we would have stayed on this topic a lot longer. They really breezed past it. So anyhow, Brooks goes on to say that she called Sergio up, addressed it with him, and then Stanbury called her up. She was furious. She was just so angry about the whole entire thing. And then we learned that Sergio claimed that he's never even heard the word before, and Brooks had to school him that that word is unacceptable, period. Now, like I said earlier, anti-blackness is global. Everybody knows about the N-word. So we're not even going to sit here and play this, talking about he's never heard the word before. Like, stop it. So now Sarah interjects, and she says that her tech team investigated the tweet, and they found out that it was somebody else who tweeted that from his account. It was somebody who owns an R&B nightclub, and they tweeted that from Sergio's Twitter account. Now I said, Sarah, you must think that we're stupid to tell a lie like that. I didn't believe one word of that. All of a sudden now, Sergio's hacked. Somebody else is using his account to tweet about some nightclub. Like, y'all really think that we're dumb. And the fact that Sergio has yet to say anything publicly about it says a whole lot. Because if he allegedly got hacked, he would have addressed this 2 months ago when the news came out about him saying the N-word in 2016. So again, miss me with all the lies. And Stanbury, you sounded so dumb talking about, yeah, before we came on this show, I told Sergio to check all his social media prior to joining. And I was thinking, well, that's a very interesting response. And obviously, he didn't check hard enough because he sure missed those tweets in 2016. And then when she said he apologized to who he felt he needed to apologize to, and he's the least racist person I know, I was like, again, that's unacceptable. Sergio and yourself needed to have come out with a public apology. Period. And Brooks, for you to be so eager to defend that, I was like, girl, what's wrong with you? You look so desperate to be in Caroline Stanbury's good graces. Like, it's embarrassing to watch. Stanbury would not have gotten off easy like that had I been the host. She probably would have walked off the set because I would have stayed on that for at least an hour and a half. And I would have told Brooks, be quiet. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to her. I want to hear what she has to say about this. Brooks and Stanbury are nobody's Garcelle and Sutton, okay? So now we jump to the next topic, and it's all about Caroline Stanbury being an influencer. So Andy reads off a viewer question asking if she's received over 7 figures worth of free products. So Caroline Stanbury says that she definitely has received over 7 figures worth of free products, but that it's still a job at the end of the day. And please don't be fooled because content creation, influencing, like, it is not a joke, okay? You really do work hard. Don't let anybody tell you that it's easy, because it's not. So, yes, it's very glamorous, the free trips and free this, free that, but she is definitely being put to work. So now Stanbury says that it's not about the amount of people who follow you, it's about the quality of people who follow you, and a lot of powerful and rich people follow her. And I have to say that she's right in those regards. Like, don't ever be so hung up on the amount of people who follow you or somebody else. You can have less followers than somebody and end up having more influence and more reach. So now Andy reads yet another shady viewer question, asking if Sergio has a job or is he just on Stanbury's payroll. Did anybody catch when Andy was like, I was wondering the same thing too? I said again, the shade of it all. Andy lets his shade slip out. So Stanbury says that he does work with her on some projects, but he's also into crypto trading and does very well for himself. So Stanbury lets it be known that her man makes a good coin because for her birthday, he wrote her a huge check. So we learned from Nina that it was Bitcoin and it had to be transferred into cash. Now remember that Nina's husband does Bitcoin and crypto and all that stuff, and supposedly they're billionaires. The richest on the cast, by the way. So Stanbury says, exactly. Nina's husband gave Sergio the check, so obviously I'm not lying. Now Andy asked a question that I want to know too. I was so happy that he asked it. He asked if Stanbury and Sergio are both paying for the house or if Sergio is paying for the house. We learned that the both of them are paying for the house, and Andy seemed so disappointed. He was like, oh, y'all are both paying for it? Like, you just said that he gave you a huge check for the house. And Stanbury says, no, he gave me a big check to buy all the furniture for the house. Now, I have to say, I wasn't surprised to hear that Sergio and Caroline were going 50-50 on this house. So now, Andy reads a viewer question aimed at Ayan regarding her shady tweets about Caroline and Sergio always kissing on their Instagram. And the viewer wants to know if Ayan thinks that they're overhyping their relationship. So Ayan says, of course, like, who does that? They're always on each other. I don't believe it. So Stanbury says, actually, we are. Like, we're always like that. We're very affectionate towards each other. Like, that's normal for us. And so Ayan's like, who does that? Who does that? And I was thinking, now, Ayan, why do you care so much? And two, they're not the only couples who are always kissing on Instagram, but I didn't understand why you felt the need to shade them about that. I mean, I understand that you might not like them, but it's a bit much to say that, they're playing it up for the cameras. Like, I actually think that they do love each other a lot, and I think that they really are that affectionate, especially Sergio. So now Sarah jumps in the conversation, and personally, I had no idea that Sarah and Stanbury were that close. Because I was like, okay, you have Brooks over there being her bodyguard. Now you got Sarah sitting up there defending Stanbury. And she's like, Ayan, have you even been to Stanbury and Sergio's house? Ayan says, yeah, I've been one time. So Sarah says, well, I go to their house all the time. So Ayan says, no, you don't. And Sarah says, yes, I do. I'm there all the time. Like, we live opposite of each other. I'm only 7 or 8 minutes away. So Ayan's like, no, you don't. And they're like, girl, how are you going to tell us that we don't live close to each other? Like, we live right there. And I was like, once again, Ayan, pick and choose your battles because this wasn't it. And Andy knew exactly what he was doing, reading off Sergio's shady tweets towards Ayan and Lesa. Because when he read Sergio talking about Ayan's just mad because she doesn't get any sex, and Ayan's like, he would know that better than me because I don't think that he gets any. Because I don't even think that he's ever even touched a vagina. He doesn't even know the shape of a vagina, and he doesn't even know how babies come out. So, again, he would know better than I do. I said, when Ayan gets angry, and then Andy reads Sergio's shady tweet towards Lesa about her business. Lisa's upset, and she says that nobody has ever funded her business. And then she gets a piece of paper out, which has all the money that she's made over Facebook ads. So she's like, that's only 1 month of ads, Andy. And don't even get me started on how much we've made since the Bravo effect. So now Stanbury interjects and she says, but how do you do that when your website garners no traffic or views? So now Lesa gets mad and she's like, don't you ever talk about me, not with your bankrupt business. I was like, Stanbury, you just had to say something. And Stanbury, Lesa's business does do well. Don't forget that Beyonce has worn Mina Rowe. So you sounded dumb trying to disparage Lesa's business. Always make sure that your shade makes sense, okay? At the very least. So now we jump to the Brooke segment of this reunion. And as the montage is playing, you can tell that Brooks is kind of emotional watching everything back. So Andy starts it off by asking her about her spa called the Glass Door. And Brooke says that she's opening in 28 days and she's really excited. She says that it's going to be a soft launch at first, just for influencers. And then Andy makes a joke and he's like, oh, is Stanbury invited because she's an influencer? And she says, of course. And then we learn that Brooks has already secured her second location. I was like, well, damn, that's fast. I said, you better secure the bag. So now Andy changes gears in the conversation and he starts asking Brooks about the current status of where she's at with her ex-husband, Zoran. So Brooke says that they're in a great place, and when they had that conversation earlier on in this season, that was a pivotal moment for their relationship because there was one point where he could not even come into her house when he would come to pick Adam up to stay with him. And then we learned that that was their first time sitting down and eating together in 4.5 years. So Andy wants to know, what did the apology mean to her? And she says that when her ex-husband apologized, it was huge. Like, it meant the world to her. Then she adds that the reason why she was so angry and the reason why she was so closed off and guarded towards other people was because of him and what she dealt with in their marriage. Then she says that he let her down a lot when they were married. So Andy touches on the abuse that she suffered while she was married to Zoran. And we learned that she was verbally, physically, and emotionally abused. She goes on to say that it was a very violent relationship. And then she says the breaking point for her was when they were living overseas in Serbia. And they had had a really volatile fight. And she was like, that's it. She says that she called her mom up. Her mom got them out of there. And she says that she left the house with the clothes on her back, Adam in one arm, and her baby bag, and she was out of there. And I'll be the first one to say that I was truly wrong because all this time I thought that Brooks was being dramatic about leaving with nothing. But when she told that story, it was like, oh my gosh, she literally left with nothing. Could you imagine? And how scary that must have been. And I want to say one thing. I don't know how she was able to forgive her ex-husband. Because had I been through something like that, I don't think that I could ever speak to him again. Okay? Much less be in business with him or sit down and eat lunch with him. Like when she was sharing her story, I was so sad for her. And to come from that to now them being cordial and being friendly, like, whew. But then we found out that Brooks went to Dubai and she stayed with her ex-best friend at the time. And she found a job working in a tech company, and that's how she built her life from the ground up. So now Andy asks another question that we've all been dying to know, and he's like, why do you think Zoran did apologize to you, especially in front of the cameras? So Brooke says that that apology really showed that he's proving to her that he's truly sorry. I also got the impression that her ex-husband apologized on national TV because the backstory about what happened in their marriage was bound to get out to the blogs and, publications. And I feel like he was thinking, let me get ahead of this so that way I can get the public on my side and they'll forgive me because I apologized to her. So now we get on the topic of dating in Dubai. Andy's asking Caroline Brooks, how many boyfriends does she have? She's like, it depends on the day of the week. And then she says that it's easy to date in Dubai, but when it comes to serious relationships, it's a bit hard. because Dubai is like an adult playground. Guys have a lot of options, so that makes it difficult and you can't take them seriously. I can definitely see that being the case. I hear a lot of interesting things regarding Dubai when it comes to, the dating and different things going on. So yeah, I wasn't too surprised when she said that. And when she said adult playground, I immediately thought about all those stories about how some of these IG girls, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. Now we find out that Brooks actually likes African men a whole lot. And then Ayan starts joking around. She's like, yeah, she does. Because my aunt, who has a high position in the government, she knows exactly who Brooks dated back in the day. So Brooks is like, Ayan, like, girl, don't put my business on Front Street. Like, okay, like, be quiet, mind your business. And I was thinking, is this the married man that you were dating, who was about to be the president-elect? But either way, a mess. So now we start talking about Caroline Brooks and Sarah and their relationship through the course of this season. And Andy wants to know from Sarah, what does she think is the root of Caroline Brooks's anger issues? So Sarah says the trauma of what she dealt with in her marriage, that's probably the cause of it. I dealt with it too in my own marriage, so I know what it's like. And then Sarah says that Brooks feels like people judge and attack her, but at the end of the day, Brooks is an amazing woman. So now Andy says, the last time we saw you guys were at each other's throats because Brooks felt like you were judging her parenting. Where do you all stand now in terms of your friendship? So Brooks says that their friendship is great, never been better, and how Sarah is her girl. Then Brooks adds that if Sarah were to say that today, she would take it a bit differently because they're good friends now. So now Andy says to Sarah, since you're a single mom yourself, if the tables were reversed and Brooks said that to you, would you be upset at her? So Sarah says, no, I wouldn't take it that way. But if I was feeling a type of way, I would pull her to the side and say, hey, let's not talk about that. Now I have to say, when we got to this part, I was like, okay, y'all fought about it for 3 episodes straight. Let's not talk about it, okay? You guys are in a great space. You're good friends. Let's just leave it at that. Because it looked like Brooks was getting angry all over again just thinking about it. And I still stand by what I said about Brooks overreacting about what Sarah said. I don't think that Sarah meant any harm. I thought that it was an innocent observation, like, oh, maybe you should be a bit closer or whatever. I didn't think that she was coming from a judgmental or malicious place. So now we see that Andy has a viewer question for Nina, and the question goes, whose side was Nina on in this whole Brooks versus Sarah debacle? So of course, Nina, being the neutral peacemaker that she is, she doesn't say whose side she was on. She's like, well, I spoke to both of them. Brooks called me up at 6 a.m. to tell me her side. And I was like, 6 a.m.? And Brooks, they addressed that later on in this episode, but you have got to stop calling people before 9 a.m. That is in such poor taste. I was taught that you don't call anybody before 9 a.m. unless it's an emergency. And in that case, it's going to be a family member. But like, you calling up your friends and everybody else at 6 a.m., that's unacceptable. And I'm going to be honest, I would curse you out for that. Don't do that. And then to find out that they're all on a group call chain, so when she calls somebody at 6 a.m., they all get the call at the same time. I was like, what? Brooks, please do better, because that's just unacceptable. And you are too grown, like, you know better. So now Nina addresses how Brooks made her feel at Stanbury's engagement party. She's like, you acted like I betrayed you or something. Like, I didn't do that. I was just trying to hear both of your sides. So now Brooks jokes around that she was super intoxicated at Stanbury's engagement party. I was like, girl, we know. You were good and drunk. Brooks seems like she's an angry drunk. And girl, if you're angry, then maybe you need to, dial it back when it comes to the drinking, okay? Like, know your limit. If you know that after 2 glasses of champagne, it's about to go left, maybe cut it off at like 1.5. It's so fascinating how alcohol affects everybody differently. Like, some folks are emotional, some folks are, super fun and lit. You know what I'm saying? Then you have people who want to fight. And Brooks is in that category for sure. So now Andy brings up how Ayan had the Ethiopian lunch to bring them all together, and he wants to know what made her think that that would be a good idea. So Ayan says that she thought that it would be nice for them to sit down and just hash it out, because in her culture, it's a sign of respect to sit down and, break bread and try to hash things out. So now Ayan says that she thought it would also be a good idea because she had spoken to Sarah beforehand and told her that pretty much everybody in the whole group feels judged by her, and she thought that it would be a great time for Sarah to explain herself. So Andy's surprised to hear this. He's like, so you felt judged by Sarah? And she says, yes. So now she brings up when Sarah wrote the word kind on her arm when they were at that global summit. So now Sarah's like, girl, I thought that we were having a good time. Like, I wrote the words, kind, love, like it wasn't being shady or malicious. Like I even wrote the word give on my arm because I'm a very giving person. So Ayan's really angry and she's like, kindness runs through my blood. Like, why would you write that on my arm? And now you have her and Sarah going back and forth. And now Andy interjects and he's trying to talk Ayan off the ledge. He's like, Ayan, I think that you took it the wrong way. Like, she was not trying to insult you. You're being defensive, but it's a misunderstanding on your part. And when she finally got it, she was like, oh, okay, it was a misunderstanding. And Andy was like, yeah, that's what we were trying to tell you. And I have to say, that is one thing that gets on my nerves about Ayan, because she's very quick to react and get angry without understanding what's really going on. Like, nobody was judging you or attacking you or trying to shade you. And I was so happy when she finally got what Andy was saying, when Andy was like, yeah, it wasn't an attack, it wasn't a judgment. So Sarah says, you're way too defensive, like you ran with that and then made yourself a victim. So Ayan's angry and she's like, I am not a victim, I am nobody's victim. And now you have Nina jumped in and I was like, okay, Nina. Nina said, don't count her out just yet. She has some stuff to say. So Nina says, people who are good to you and people who love you, you attack them. So now you have Lesa jumping in, sticking up for Ayan, and she's like, if you love Ayan, then show it with your actions, not just your words. And I was thinking, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that Nina has done anything to Ayan. So I don't really understand why Ayan has all this animosity towards Nina. So now Ayan's like, shut up, Nina. Go eat a French fry and look at the moon. I was like, Ayan, really? It fell a little flat to me, y'all. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, okay, Ayan. It gave very middle school read. And I didn't think that what Nina said to Ayan warranted all that. Because Nina was just offering an observation. Like, Ayan, it seems like you're quick to assume that people are out to get you, when in reality, you actually have a lot of people who love you. So now Sarah jumps back in and she's like, you talk about everybody so badly on this show. So now Lesa and Ayan both say, everybody talks about everybody on this show. And the only thing I've ever said about you on this show is that you're preachy and judgmental. That's it. So now Ayan says, and Sarah, don't start, because you called me up threatening me with a police case and threatening to sue me. I was like, Sarah, really, girl? You want to act like you're so zen and nothing bothers you, but you're that mad? You wouldn't last a day on another franchise. They're calling people see you next Tuesdays, everything but a child of God on the other franchises, okay? So being called preachy and judgmental, that's real life. And you might need to get off this show if being called preachy and judgmental has you wanting to sue somebody. Really, girl? You sounded like Diana Jenkins from Beverly Hills, because she's out here sending YouTubers and bloggers cease and desist letters because she's upset at what folks are saying about her. And Andy doesn't like talk about them suing each other because he was like, okay, I want to talk about that. Let's put a pin on that and move to something else. Because I've heard from various people that when you get on these shows, you're not allowed to sue your castmates. Like, Bravo frowns on that. So the fact that Sarah was trying to pull that with Ayan, I'm like, girl, really? You might not be on this show next season. And if we're being real, you didn't bring a whole lot. What was your storyline again, sis? I'll wait. So now Andy wants to know, what did Sarah mean when she told Brooks that if Brooks tells her to shut up one more time, then she's going to deal with her differently? So Sarah says, well, I'm 99% nice, but that 1%, like, I can get really nasty. Like, I'll fight you. So now Lesa and Ayan are like, yeah, right. Ayan says it's more like 85%. So now Sarah's like, oh my gosh, the two highlighters have a lot to say. I laughed at that, and it was so funny because Ayan was like, wait, what's a highlighter? And then Andy was like, it's a very bright colored magic marker. So now we get on the topic of Brooks and Ayan's strange friendship. I was a bit annoyed about this part because you guys know how I feel about Brooks and Ayan. I think that they don't like each other and they need to make peace with that and just move on. I'm not in the business of forcing people to like me. You either like me or you don't. Like, I don't want anybody who's on the fence about me, lukewarm about me. Like, I don't want anybody with some secret animosity. No. You're either all in or all out. And I think it's weird that you have two people who find each other annoying and aggravating, but yet still want to be around each other. Like, what? I just don't understand it. And I don't understand why they want to have this Penny Proud, La Cienega Boulevardes type frenemy situation going on. Like, it's weird to me, especially at their big ages. So now Andy asks both of them, what's one positive thing that they like about one another? Brooks says that it's Ayan's ability to make anybody laugh. And then Ayan says that Brooks is fun to be around. So we learned that they met through Lesa, and when they met each other, they didn't hit it off at all. Ayan said that she was aggravated because Brooks came to the event like 35 minutes late. She made everybody wait for her, and Ayan didn't like that. And it was so funny because Ayan was like, yeah, you know, I thought that she was very dramatic. And Andy was like, dramatic? Like, you thought that somebody else was dramatic? Like, that's hilarious. And I was thinking, Ayan, when it comes to dramatics, you definitely are at the top of the list. Now we clear up the whole confusion about Brooks calling Ayan up at 6 a.m. to make her feel bad about not being invited to Caroline Stanbury's hen party. And so Brooks is sitting up there lying, talking about, I didn't try to make her feel bad. And it was like, Brooks, just admit it. Even Ayan said, Brooks, just come clean already. Like, there's no use lying. And then when Brooks said, you know, I didn't know, I was just trying to confirm. And once again, Brooks, why did you need to know that information? You're not the one having the party, so why did you care so much if Ayan wasn't invited? Like, Brooks is just so messy. Her spirit is just a little off to me. I don't know. She just really irks me. And Ayan, don't ever let anybody get that satisfaction about you being upset over not being invited to a party. So now Andy reads a viewer question aimed at Stanbury. They want to know if Stanbury was angry at Brooks over what she said to Ayan about not being invited. Stanbury says that she was pissed off because that wasn't her intention to make Ayan feel bad. So now Ayan says that Brooks is the problem between everybody's relationships in this group, and now they start going back and forth. And while they were going back and forth at this point, Ayan brings up what Brooks was saying about her, about how she has the brain of a 5-year-old and how she needs subtitles when she talks. And you could tell that Ayan was hurt by that. And I was thinking, once again, y'all are not real friends. You guys don't like each other. For Brooks to go that low in a simple argument, like, that's really low down. Like, it reminds me of Marlo from Atlanta. But if they insist on having this awful friendship, then have at it. It's their lives, not mine. But I just know that it couldn't be me. So now the whole topic of Brooks being jealous of Lesa and Ayan's friendship comes up. And Brooks is like, child, nobody in this group is jealous of whatever they have going on. Like, I am just fine. So Lesa says, yes, you are jealous of our friendship. And that's why the four of you guys ran out to form that little friendship that you guys have, because you're jealous of us. Now, I definitely could see that being the case, because I even said that a few episodes ago, that I do suspect that Brooks is a bit jealous of Ayan and Lesa's friendship for whatever reason. I mean, I don't know why, because from the looks of things, she's always up Stanbury's behind, so I didn't know that she cared to get to know anybody else. So now Andy wants to know, what could the two of them do to improve their friendship? Ayan says nothing because she likes Brooks a lot and Brooks is a lot of fun. And then Brooks says, well, at the end of the day, Ayan is who she is. And then you have Ayan saying that the reason why there's so much friction is because she likes to be the powerful person in the group, and so does Brooks, and they're both fighting for that. And then Andy jokes and says, you guys are both tops trying to fight for dominance. But if I'm being honest, I think that it's a three-way tie between Ayan, Brooks, and Stanbury, all competing for the top spot. So now we get to the last scene of this reunion, and it is the Lesa segment. Andy starts it off by asking Lesa if putting ice chunks in pools is common practice in Dubai. So Lesa says it is. It's just a fun thing to do in Dubai, and how she has a pool heater and a chiller. So now Andy reads a viewer question asking why Stanbury threw shade at Lesa regarding putting ice in the pool. Because Stanbury had tweeted something like, well, I don't need to do that because I have an automatic ice cooler and pool heater. So Stanbury says, well, I said that because I don't know anybody who puts ice in their pool unless they have to. I was like, well, damn. I said Stanbury is always trying to call somebody broke in a very slick way. So now Lesa says, girl, don't start with me. I have an automatic ice cooler and pool heater as well. I just do it because it's fun to do. Then she says, Stanbury just said that because she's not used to having a house. So Stanbury is like, girl, I own several houses. I have a home in the UK. You know, we're building our dream home right now in Dubai. Like, don't play with me. If you would have told me that Lesa and Stanbury were going to fall out like this, I wouldn't have believed you. Because the way this season started out, Lesa and Stanbury were really cool with each other. So now Andy brings up Miss Goat. Lesa says that she was heartbroken when Miss Goat passed away because she became a staple in the family, and she, along with her boys and her husband, grew very close to Miss Goat. So now Andy wants to know if any of their kids watch the show. Lesa says no. Sarah says that her son doesn't. Brooke says no. Stanbury says that her daughter watches. And then Ayan says that her son Taj watched one episode and he was like, Mom, you're so embarrassing. Like, don't do this again. But she says that he loves filming the scenes with her. So now Andy reads a viewer question asking Lesa, why didn't she just say the exact amount that she made when she was talking about her sales? So now Lesa says that she made 8 figures in dirhams and 7 figures in dollars. Now, honestly, I wouldn't expect for anybody to say the exact amount of money they've made in sales. Like, it's really nobody's business, and if you really are that nosy, you can just Google it. But anyhow, here's where the last 2 minutes go left. Andy reads a viewer question asking Stanbury, what does she think about Lesa's maternity line? And does she believe Lesa's claims that she's the #1 line, or is she just overhyping herself? So you already know that Stanbury's about to shade the hell out of Lesa. And she says, well, actually, I Googled her line, and she's not even listed as one of the top maternity lines. So, I'm confused as to how she's #1. Then she says that Lesa has been stealing designs from one of her good friends. So Lesa says, come again? Who's your friend? And if I am stealing your friend's designs, why hasn't she contacted me herself or done it legally? Now, I felt like Stanbury was absolutely pulling that out of her ass, because if that were the case, Lesa would have been hit up with a lawsuit like that. A black woman stealing a white woman's designs? Stanbury's friend would have had Lesa hemmed up in court ages ago. I think that Stanbury is just saying this to be nasty. So Lesa says, who does she design for? Like, I never heard of her. And Stanbury says she designs for herself. Like, those are her designs. So Lesa says, 90% of my designs are all mine, and the other 10% come from outside creatives, and I have the license for all of them. So Ayan interjects and she's like, Beyonce has worn her pieces, so what are you talking about? So now Lesa starts reading and she's like, let me know when you need somebody to call when it comes to having a successful business. I'm the only one sitting here with a successful business. Now I was thinking, hold on, Lesa, because you just dissed your friend. Because doesn't Ayan own her own modeling agency? Is that not a business? If I were Ayan, I would say, okay, girl, now you're doing too much because now you low-key insulted me. And everybody was pissed because she also insulted Brooks by saying that because Brooks owns her own spa. And don't forget that Sarah owns a tech company. So they were like, girl, what? So now Nita jumps in and she's like, excuse me? So are you saying that my business isn't running? And they're like, well, what's your business? And she's like, my fruitcake business. So now Ayan's like, well, I don't know. Do people even eat fruitcake? And I was like, Ayan, you don't have to be mean. A business is a business, and somebody's eating fruitcakes. You know what's funny? My grandmother, my dad's mom, she loves a fruitcake. Loves. I don't know if it's a West Indian thing, but yeah, she will tear a fruitcake up. So we end this first part with Caroline Stanbury bringing out the Book of Lies, and on the cover is a picture of Lesa's face, and it's her nose stretched out like Pinocchio. I was like, now Stanbury girl, enough with the binders and the notebooks. We have been here many times before, and we are tired. You know who from Potomac in season 5 already brought out the binder. Come up with something else. And then we hear Lesa say, you're obsessed with me. You wish you looked like this. And that's where the first part of this reunion ends. And I have to say, I was thoroughly entertained. I said for a lackluster season, this reunion actually gave a little something. But y'all, thank you so much for watching my recap. I hope you all enjoyed, and you guys already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye.